Hello everyone, welcome to the channel of MeteoMark Weather. It's great to have you here today. We have so much to talk about, especially in the tropics. National Hurricane Center is now outlining 5 areas from the Western Gulf, off the U.S. East Coast, northeast to the Caribbean Islands, and west to the Cape Verde Islands. Do any of these areas have a chance to become our next tropical storm or hurricane over the next week? We'll get into all the details for you. And in the Western Pacific, we'll be talking about Super Typhoon Yagi, as well as your weather for North America as a new weather pattern sets in. Let's get into it. All right, so we'll start off with the European model here, and then we'll transition to the GFS. Let's just take them one at a time here. So this right here is Invest 99L. 30% chance through days 2 through 7 here. It's got a very narrow window of opportunity. Obviously, as we look to the northeast here, we have that blocking high, so it's going to have to go around it, likely here into Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. Watch what happens here. It has the potential to become something extra tropical. Invest 99L here. It's going to stay away from the New England coast here because we have this big area of low pressure, this cold front moving in. You can see, so this is going to save most of New England at this point. But here it is, this system making landfall on our European model Saturday evening. Here it is after 11 p.m. It's right over Prince Edward Island. So it's really starting to accelerate to the northeast. Extra tropical characteristics, but it'll feel more like your typical average nor'easter. And behind it, another area of low pressure tries to form, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Here in the Western Gulf, things are very complicated. We have a 10% chance, 20% chance with this through day 7. So, Invest 90L. It's kind of camped out here off the Texas coast. Does it really have that much of a chance of development? Well, let's put this into motion. There it is, right just south of Beaumont, Port Arthur here. We have our other system making landfall, so to speak. Our big tropical wave we've been watching come across the entire Atlantic without any development, moving right into Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula, and then re-emerging, you can see here, into the Bay of Campeche as we head through the 7th here, so into Saturday. We essentially have 2 areas of low pressure. Which one is going to become the primary low? That is what models are having a very difficult time sorting out. I think at this point, we're going to see some sort of tropical development here into the Western Gulf. It's just a question of which one of these low pressure systems becomes the dominant low. And you can see that's going to surge some tropical moisture up here into the eastern part of Texas and western Louisiana. So this is something we'll have to keep an eye on. This is through the 10th, into the 11th, into the 12th. You can see whatever happens with this system, it'll probably be landfalling here, maybe here into the Western Gulf. And as we go out here in time, you can see some big tropical wave action moving through Jamaica and just to the east as well, Cayman Islands. That'll be knocking on your door, the Bahamas. And now let's get to the system behind it. Here into the northeast of the Caribbean Islands. It's hanging out right northeast of the Leeward and Windward Islands here. So we're going to watch this system. It doesn't have a lot going for it for the first 7 days here, only 10%. You can see it parallels the Caribbean Islands. Not really looking like much here. But watch this as we head towards the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th. It starts to meet up with a stalled out frontal boundary. So here it is. It does not look like much here through the 10th. Now watch what happens here into the 11th, the 12th, and here into the 13th and 14th. We start to see something that looks a bit more menacing here, and model trends have been showing this essentially stuck off the southeast coast because of this very big blocking high just to the north of Bermuda. So this is a system that bears watching. It's more longer term, say 8 to as much as 15 days out. So a lot can change, but now as we look at out by the Cape Verde Islands here, we have this weak area, 20% chance through day 7. I do want you to pay attention to this intertropical convergence zone because watch what really starts to pinwheel off the coast. It's actually an area that's not outlined by the National Hurricane Center. This is towards the 8th and the 9th. It's just starting to come off the coast. Now, this first area that has a weak chance, a 20% chance through day 7, is right here. It looks more like a tropical wave, and looks like we have a tropical storm potential here over the Cape Verde Islands. At least that's what this run of the European model is showing. And as we propagate this into motion towards the 12th into the 13th, you can see it really intensifying here. Our first area just kind of fizzles out, but this area starts to intensify and become the primary area of low pressure, continuing to develop into a hurricane. Now, before we continue with the GFS model, don't forget, if you've made it this far in the video, smash that like button. It really does help everyone. Question or comment down below. I'd love to read your questions or comments. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe bell notification button so you're alerted with all my future weather video updates. Let's continue. All right, so here is our GFS model. You can see we're going to zoom out here a bit because you know the story. Now, let's take a look at how these are going to evolve here. So we have our Western Caribbean here. There's our system here across the north, just off the coastline of the east coast of the United States. That's going to continue to the northeast. GFS is a bit further to the east here by a little bit. So here it is, the 6th, the 7th. Here it is on Saturday morning. You can see it funneling moisture up to Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and then to the northeast. There's our another system behind it, so these low pressures are just going to line up. And then as we see our system here into the Western Caribbean, it's going to continue to move westward. It looks like the GFS battles onto which area of low pressure becomes the dominant one as well. You can see this is by the 12th. It's up over parts of the northeastern Gulf, and this area of low pressure tries to initialize just west of Florida. This is the 13th. So look what starts to happen here towards the 14th. It crosses Florida, starts to develop here, and then by the 15th, the 16th, we actually have a landfalling system here across parts of the Carolinas. A very broad area of low pressure, however. And then another system trying to form here into the Western Gulf behind it. So could we have several systems developing? This is what I want to turn your attention to, though. Let's just back this up. So a lot can be said about, these areas. However, you can see as we go out here in time, that system becomes weak, so does that system. Of course, the European model blows that system up bigger. However, I want to turn your attention to what I was showing you on the European model, our Cape Verde system out here coming off the coast of Africa, the 9th, the 10th. You see it pinwheels right through the Cape Verde Islands here as what looks to be a strong tropical wave or depression here on the GFS model. The 10th, the 11th, the 12th, and into the 13th. This is bending more towards the west. As you can see, this high pressure is nosing down here towards the MDR, suppressing the system further to the south. And as you can see here, as we head through the 14th, the 15th, take this with a grain of salt because this is 228 hours out. But this kind of can show you how quickly things can change here in the tropics. This is showing, the GFS is showing a major hurricane coming right through the Lesser Antilles and then off towards Puerto Rico here towards the 17th into the 18th. That, like I said, take this with a grain of salt because this is really far out and this is, grasping for straws at this point, but it kind of shows us the overall pattern here. We'll keep a very close watch on this possible prospect. And our water temperatures are very supportive for storms. The Gulf and the Caribbean just warming up. MDR, plenty of warm water to feed these storms. All right, so I want to show you the upper level and mid layers here of dry air and moist areas. Thanks, TropicalTidbits. This gives you a good idea of which systems may have the best shot here. I always like to use this product. There it is. There's our area out here in west of the Cape Verde Islands. This is Saturday, September 7th. Another East Coast system. There's our system becoming whatever it is by Nova Scotia. And then we have the Western Gulf here. We have a little bit of dry air, so we'll have to keep an eye on that over Texas. There's the Southern Caribbean, but look at the Cayman Islands and Jamaica here. We have some mid-layer dry air. That's some good news for you. But look at the dust kind of hanging out here just south of the Azores. Now, as we continue through Monday into Tuesday, see what's happening here? The GFS showing that the primary low out here is that system that comes off the coast of Africa, right in here. And then we have this area off the East Coast, and then watching the Gulf closely. Let's just back that up to see exactly how that transpired. So there it is, surging up towards eastern Texas, Louisiana. The GFS is showing this obviously over more towards Florida here as we head into the 12th. There's our area off the coast of the Cape Verde Islands. And as we continue to progress this in time, that area off the southeast coast really starts to wind up on the GFS here. There's where the GFS is really showing this major hurricane bearing down on the Western Antilles. So I caution you, this is the GFS, and it is, as you can see, it's way out here by some, we're out to the 16th here, 250 hours. As we continue in time, it shows a major hurricane coming through the Bahamas. But look at this. This is indicating that we have a trough here in an area, a stalled out frontal boundary. Now we head with the European model here, and here's our dry air analysis and areas where it's moist. You can see much of the northern Caribbean dry here through the weekend, at least at the mid layers. There's our system out here into the MDR. And then watching our system here across the Western Gulf and see how that evolves. The European shows that, both low pressure systems kind of combining here with much moisture coming up into Texas and Louisiana. Now, here we go. This is what I want to really focus on as we go out here in time. Through the middle of the month, the European showing that same hurricane some 600 to 800 miles well to the northeast here. So it'll be interesting to see which model takes over. And then, of course, this showing up on the European model as well, another system off the southeast coast. All right, so I want to show you the wind shear analysis here on the GFS. You can see as we go out here in time, obviously with our stalled out frontal boundary here along the east, that's where the wind shear is greatest. But here's our systems out here, and it looks like wind shear will be laxing a bit around our systems. And even in the Western Gulf here, look at, there's virtually no wind shear. And then as we continue to go out here in time towards the 12th into the 13th, you can start to see this system. The reason the GFS is blowing this up is not only because, the sea surface temperatures, but look at how little shear. You have to go well to the north to get into shear. We have some easterly shear, but that's well to the east. And that system just really gets into a good environment here, according to the GFS. But one promising note, even if this does become a major hurricane, by GFS standards, we have a lot of wind shear out ahead of it here. Obviously, there's a trough here off the U.S. East Coast, and it starts to encounter it, at least on this model run, but this is by the 20th here. And if we take a look at European model wind shear here it is, Western Gulf, very little wind shear to contend with, even out here directly into the MDR. So these are the areas that have the best chance. There's that big area coming off the Cape Verde Island areas, and that is in a pretty prime environment here as well. So both the European and GFS models going crazy with our system that has not exited the coast yet. It will in the next couple days, but the European model blowing this up much further to the north here with lots of wind shear here off the coast. And then you can see we have some moderate wind shear here into the western and central parts of the Caribbean. And if we take a look at European model wind shear here it is, Western Gulf, very little wind shear to contend with, even out here directly into the MDR. So these are the areas that have the best chance. There's that big area coming off the Cape Verde Island areas, and that is in a pretty prime environment here as well. So both the European and GFS models going crazy with our system that has not exited the coast yet. It will in the next couple days, but the European model blowing this up much further to the north here with lots of wind shear here off the coast. And then you can see we have some moderate wind shear here into the western and central parts of the Caribbean. But you can see here across parts of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, much lighter amounts as we get into next week. You can see some of these areas getting upwards of, say, 45 to 60 millimeters, nothing more than about a half to 3/4 of an inch. Then heading to the Eastern Caribbean here. So our big tropical wave here just spinning to the northeast. There will be some showers pinwheeling out of the east, but nothing too terribly heavy here. We get into next week, especially next weekend. You see the September 14th timeframe. We start to get a little bit more of a rainfall push here, but still, we're only looking at about 50, maybe upwards of 70 millimeters here. Nothing more than about 3/4 to 1.5 inches. And then we do start to get some tropical waves pushing in from the east. And to the following week here, we start to see upwards of 60, 70, maybe 80 millimeters just north of Trinidad Tobago here. So we could be looking at on the order of about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. But look at the northern Bahamas. This is where you'll start to pile up the rain closer to 80 to 100 millimeters, up towards about 2.5 to as much as 3.5 inches of rain. Super Typhoon Yagi. Here it is. Look at this buzzsaw. This is really, really, really intense. Perfect donut shape. This is well over, it's like 150 gusting to like 175 to 185. This is really intense. And look at this. It's heading right in the direction here of parts of South China. So watch out. This is really menacing. And here we go with our European model. You can see Yagi has its eye on Henan here and parts of South China. This is going to really be really intense here as we head through Friday, the 6th. This is going to continue. It may lose some of its strength, but it's still going to be a very powerful and intense typhoon. And as you know, even as these typhoons are weakening, they keep the storm surge that they had when they were like a category 4 or 5. Look at that, 150 max to 185 right now. But that's going to be heading towards the northwest. It's going at a really good clip. So yeah, flooding is still going to be a concern, but the good news is it's not going to be stalling out. So it does make a second landfall here. Just to the north. In fact, it actually looks like it's making landfall right into northern part of Vietnam here. So that is a big problem. It looks like a kind of a populated area here. So that's going to be heading west very quickly. The good news is that will cut down on the total rainfall amounts. Now look what's going on here. We have another area of low pressure forming just behind it, a very broad area of low pressure. The good news is it doesn't look like that's really developing until we get another area of low pressure east of the Philippines here towards the 12th. And this one looks a lot more promising as far as development here. And as we continue in time, that starts to barrel towards the northwest. Looks like it keeps a lot of its deep moisture here to the southeast, but this is a system we'll have to keep close watch. We have a tropical storm just off the coast of Japan, Lipi here. This system is thankfully going to weaken out here into the northern Pacific, and as we go to the eastern Pacific, we have a lot of activity here to talk about. This area could see development 30% in 7 days. The models have been pretty consistent with flaring up a storm just off the coast and paralleling it just in line with Puerto Vallarta here. So we'll have to keep a very close watch on. It comes very close to Cabo San Lucas here, Baja of California. And could it be feeding moisture up into the southwestern part of the United States as it parallels the coast and heads north towards California? This is on September 15th. Now for your Friday, we are looking at severe weather potential here into parts of the Ohio Valley. We do have a marginal risk. It's possible this could be upgraded to a slight risk, but yeah, Cleveland all the way down to Cincinnati, Erie, Pennsylvania, just west of Pittsburgh. This area may need to be expanded a little bit. All right, so our future radar here, there's actually not too much going on here as we head into Thursday evening across much of the east. We do have some areas up here in Michigan. Watch what happens as we head into Friday here. We actually got a system pinwheeling towards the south here. It looks like it's a bit more moisture starved, but we can get some flare-ups here towards Detroit, Toledo, Fort Wayne, down to Indianapolis here. So watch out. This is 8 a.m. on Friday morning. And as we continue to go out here in time, look what it starts to do. We have some stronger, heavier cells moving through Buffalo, Cleveland, Erie, all the way down towards Dayton here. And then as we continue throughout the day, looks like some of these cells could be, we could have some isolated severe coming out of this towards 6 p.m. just in time for the evening rush. But look what starts to happen with this system. It does start to stall and bog down. There is our system just off the coast. Invest 99L. Let's put that on the radar. Looks like we actually have a line of convection all the way down through eastern Texas, Tennessee here, eastern Ohio. So it's not going to be widespread severe. It's just any one of these cells could flare up a gusty, isolated damaging wind and large hail here. You can see this is through 3 a.m. on early Saturday morning. And most of the moisture is going to be up here into parts of New York, western Pennsylvania as we head towards 7 a.m. Yeah, unfortunately, it's looking like a rainy day here as this moisture band pretty much sets up through central PA and up through the Finger Lakes of New York, eastern Lake Ontario region, all the way up through Ottawa here and parts of western Quebec. So as we head through the 8th or at the 7th through 2 p.m. here, yeah, we start to see a line of thunderstorms moving through the I-81 corridor, Binghamton, Scranton, down to Allentown here. And then look at this, a line of storms could be moving into New York City right around 7, 8, 9 p.m. here. And then off to the east as our Invest 99L gets kicked out here. You can see some flare up of some isolated cells. Now let's take a look at our Invest 99L. Here it is at 10 a.m. on Friday morning. Look at that. It looks like a very perfect comma head here. Does try to form a center of circulation towards 6 p.m. So it does have this narrow window to become extra tropical. But look at the future radar here. Lots of deep tropical moisture moving inland to Nova Scotia. It might clip eastern Maine here as well and New Brunswick and then up towards Prince Edward Island. There it is towards 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. Here we go through 10 a.m. And there's the center of circulation you can see making landfall right near Halifax as we head towards Saturday evening here. There's that center of circulation. There's 8 p.m. and then moving to the northeast here towards Prince Edward Island. Now, and there's another system we'll have to keep a close watch on just behind it here, just off the coast of the Carolinas. Now, wow, there is so much to talk about here. Now, here's our system in the Gulf. You can see this area of low pressure. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. You can see as we head through 9 p.m. on Friday, we're going to be talking about a lot of rain here. I know some of you do need the rain. There's other areas that don't, like Florida, but I know some of you have said here in some of the Gulf Coast states that you could use a little bit of these gully washers. Now look at, here's the area of low pressure through 9 a.m. on Saturday. It's just off the coast of Texas here, just east of Corpus Christi. It kind of starts to drift to the south here, and this is what the models are hinting, that it's going to bounce around here. And it's looking a bit more tropical here as we go through Saturday here. And there it is, 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, kind of right on the coastline here. So our European model here, as far as rainfall totals, yeah, southern Louisiana and eastern Texas really being targeted here as we go through the next week or so. Look at some areas of southeast Texas and southern Louisiana could see up to 8 to as much as 12 inches of rain. And that's going to surge northward as we head well into next week. We have some rain up here into parts of the Ohio Valley into the northeast, eastern Great Lakes. That's where you could see 1 to as much as 2 inches in some of these areas. Look at Florida, southern Georgia. We're just continuing with this very heavy rain situation that doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Now let's take a look at the GFS model. It can go a little further out here. It's very much a similar idea, but look at this. So this can take us, here's the 15th, 16th, 17th, and the 18th. So it does start to calm down in Florida, at least through the 18th and 20th here. It seems like most of this falls before the 15th and 16th. But look at this. I mean, this is just bad. This is totals. Even western, it's interesting. This comes from the Pacific here on the GFS. Into western Texas. But many of these areas, 4 to as much as 10 inches with locally higher amounts to 12 inches in some of these areas. And then up here into the northeast, a lot of this is with Saturday into early Sunday. Picking up where our future radar left off here, as we continue through the rest of your weekend, it's going to be bad around the edges here. So Maine, eastern New England here, you can see the Gulf Coast area. We'll continue to watch that tropical moisture surge. Whatever happens with our tropical development here, especially into the western Gulf, I think we're going to be looking at some sort of area of low pressure coming out of this, whichever low becomes the dominant low. And then as we continue through the 12th into the 13th, look at that. That is a lot of deep tropical moisture if this is how it's going to play out across the lower Mississippi River Valley and the southern plains. And you can see it really can't go anywhere other than north here because of this big high pressure system blocking over the northeast, which is going to provide the northeast with some beautiful weather. But look at this. we're kind of getting squeezed here by the 15th. We got this system stuck over the Midwest and then our system off the southeast coast. And here into Canada, what is going on up here? We have a lot to talk about as we head through Friday into Saturday here. You can see this system diving across Ontario and Quebec. It could have a lot of very heavy rain with it. Of course, we're talking about our Invest 99L system here, targeting Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and especially southern and eastern New Brunswick here into Saturday and into Sunday. Look what starts to happen. These two areas of low pressure start to try to combine forces, the one over Quebec and the one over the Canadian Maritimes here. So watch out. This is going to become one big primary low and pinwheel to the northeast. Behind it, by the 10th into the 11th, we're looking at high pressure building in across much of southeast Canada here. We just have this area of low pressure winding up over Saskatchewan and Manitoba, but very limited moisture except well to the north. We get another storm by the 12th here, so bringing some beneficial rain out by central and eastern Manitoba and Saskatchewan here. So watch out. We do start to see evidence that there's going to be a much more stormy pattern here into the coastal areas of British Columbia onto the northern part of the province as well. And then as we head in time, look at this. We get a big area of low pressure across Manitoba, pushing a lot of moisture northward here. Watch out. For some of these storms could be severe out here into the Canadian plains, and then that moves to the northeast towards Ontario, and another low ejecting from Saskatchewan, continued moisture here in northwest British Columbia. So for your Canadian rainfall outlook here, much of it is bottled up across eastern Canada. You can see with our Saturday into Sunday system across southern Ontario and Quebec, we could see upwards of 60 to 100 millimeters of rainfall. So we could be looking at an order of 2.5 to 4 inches. Now it's curious, the European keeps this low pressure very progressive here across Nova Scotia, southeastern New Brunswick, up to Prince Edward Island, and keeps us at about 40 to 70 millimeters with locally higher amounts to 90 millimeters. So that'll keep us into the 1.5 to close to 2.5 inches, locally higher to 3 inches. But we got to watch out because some of those heavier bands could put us up over 100 millimeters very easily.
And before we continue with more weather, check out these awesome, amazing maps that you won't find anywhere else.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
All right, so your temperatures, there's going to be a big disparity. Look at Friday, 60s and even some upper 50s here in northern Michigan. We're pushing the upper 80s here into parts of the Ohio Valley, near 90 in some locations, all the way down to Texas and Florida. But look at these 70s over here into parts of the deep south, even some 80s up here into parts of the Carolinas. As we go into Saturday, that cold pool of air spills to the east. Look at the 60s here for parts of the lower Great Lakes, low to mid 60s. Watch this for Sunday. That moves into the northeast, but look at this return flow of warmth coming from the west out into the plains. So we're going to have a big temperature disparity here as we head on into Monday. Look at this. Yeah, warming trend, late summer weather bringing it on into the mid 80s. And look at that, 90 in central Ohio. This is Tuesday, September 10th. So we're warming it into the 80s into the northeast. Look at where the clouds and the rain are. You can see this lower 80s into parts of Louisiana all the way up to the southern Appalachians, even holding down into the 80s into parts of Texas as well. But look at here. The warmest air is up here into parts of the Midwest. A extended forecast from our hometown viewers, Binghamton, Scranton, Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. As we take a look at Friday, if you have Friday off, good for you, because it's going to be sunny 80, 81, 82 degrees. Nice cool start. Good sleeping weather. But Friday night and Saturday, that next storm system moving in from the east, it really gets bogged down on Saturday. I think we could see about 3/4 to 1 inch of rain out of this. This carries over a little bit into Saturday night, but the cold front will be blasting through. Cooler and 60s for Sunday into Monday. Look at that. We see a warming trend and sunny skies for next week. Beautiful late summer weather. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.